So, welcome to the pre-show, everyone. If you're just wondering what the heck's going on, this is the pre-show. We've been getting people who wanted us to do more pre-shows, so we are just setting up for the show. Times like this, you get to see Julie talk about whether her hair should be up or down or wet or dry. Josh, you talk.
At least I put my makeup on already.
Yeah, she puts her makeup on. Times like this,
and I have my jewelry on, although I don't have a bracelet I was going to put on.
You get to see whether or not Josh is sweating profusely. Which apparently, you know, he's now figured out. Josh sometimes tries on wigs and women's clothing for us during this period of time. And Mike tends to scoff a lot.
Talk about how bad the Leafs are.
Actually, I don't.
Yeah. I try to figure out how to get Tokarski in goal in NHL 14. We're set now.
If I still smoked, I'd have a butt right now while we were getting ready through the pre-show.
I'm glad that you don't.
We went and looked at a new puppy last night. I'll throw that out there.
I talk about how bad the construction is on the Gardner Expressway in Toronto.
We went and looked at a new puppy. My daughter decided she wanted a new puppy.
Oh yeah? What kind of puppy?
Yeah, just, you know, Buzz is kind of lazy and fat. No offense, man. He's over there.
Oh, hey, watch out, Ak. He'll leave you a present like he did last time.
Oh,
what kind of puppy?
A Shih Tzu.
Yes! I fully support it.
You like this?
My dog was a Shih Tzu.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Best
dog ever.
This is the cutest dog I've ever seen. I want to throw that out there. This dog is absolutely insanely cute. If I have a picture of it, I'd show you. I think I do. But it's like,
you know what you need to do, Ek?
Yes.
Is there's Shih Tzus and there's Lassos, right? And they kind of look the same, although Lassos are a little bit bigger. Lassos. Yep. And typically, Shih Tzus are the real yappy ones, and the Lassos are the real calm, cool, chill, relaxed. But ours, when we went and checked them out, it was the opposite. The Lasso Opso house, I felt like I was in a Garfield commercial, and he was in a fight. You know how, like, you're in this cloud of dust and there's crap flying everywhere? Like, that's how I felt in this house. Like, the dogs are just out of control. And then we went to the Shih Tzu house, and they were so calm and so whatever. And Misty, I picked her out because she was the smallest one in the litter. And she had her head propped up on the cardboard thing that they were being, like, contained in. And she was just sitting there watching TV, like, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, this is what I'm doing. And that is what she did for the rest of her life. She watched TV. We used to leave the TV on when we left the house, just so she wouldn't feel lonely.
You know, that's what we did. We did with Bert. Bert used to watch TV.
Yeah, he was so cool and calm and relaxed, yet so affectionate and lovable, and I loved her to death.
Well, this is the cutest dog. This is the pre-show, by the way, if you guys are watching, wondering what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're not talking. We're going to start the show very soon, but this is the pre-show, which we're going to start at 1 o'clock every day because some people just tune on after lunch and they're like, you know, what do I do between the end of lunch and the time you guys start?
This is Dog Buzz here on HockeyBuzzCast.
Yeah, I got to show you this picture real fast because
show me.
And this is really this dog. I mean, I am not a real big little dog person, like in general, but this dog just totally just won me over instantly.
Where are you getting her? Is it a boy or girl?
It's a girl. This is her. Okay, so.
Oh, I love her. So cute.
Oh my God. She is ridiculous.
What size will they grow to?
She's like about the size of this remote right now.
Yeah, they're lap dogs. They won't be more than like 10, 12 pounds.
Okay. This dog climbed right up on my lap too, and climbed right up on my wife's lap, and my daughter, who was going to volunteer at this place. It's like it's just crazy.
Where did she get him?
It's well, we haven't gotten her yet, and I don't know if we're still debating it, but it's Playful Pets. It's on Ridge Pike in Conshohocken. It's a really cool. They get purebred dogs, so. Nice. You know, it's Buzz is getting lazy and stuff.
I fully support it.
So yeah, so we're this is the way we think. We think we can get Buzz a. I'm just fixing my chair. Sorry. Okay. All right. So the date. Nice. All right. Fine. That's the interesting bell. Every time someone says interesting. So by the way, one other thing before we start, I ordered a carnival wheel, just because I can.
Oh yay! Are we gonna play games?
Yes. So what we're gonna do is it has 15 spots on it. So we're gonna put 2 teams on each spot, and what I thought we would do to continue the podcast through the draft and stuff like that would be start to review teams 2 at a time, and the day before we would spin the wheel for the next show. And
what if we hit on teams twice? I mean, great idea, but I'm just saying.
Well, no, what we're gonna do is I have cardboard cutouts of each of your faces, and I'm gonna put them on the wheel once the other teams are gone. So if we get to the point where
we can rant.
Yeah, so you can pick the teams basically. It'll be like Julie's choice. You can always rant. I mean, that's a given, right?
Bummer.
If anyone else wants to write
a cardboard cutout of me is a scary proposition.
Just your face, Mike. Just your face. I have full body cardboard cutouts of all of you. You know this, right? I mean, this is what I've been doing for years.
So Starbucks has a drink for $54 now, huh? Wow.
Yeah.
And hey, Eck,
what?
Let's not, if we talk about the whole prom wedding thing, let's not mention how many years ago that was, all right?
Yeah, okay. You got it.
Let's just.
But we should talk about it. But I've already said. Well, no. Anyway, people might be able to figure it out.
Well, they can figure it out. Let's just.
We don't know what prom. You went to a prom there. How about that?
You said in a tweet this morning how many years it was.
Yes, but you went to a prom there. You might have been going to a senior prom when you were a freshman or whatever. Anyway, there you have it. Good. Let's start the show. It's the
nice cover there. There you go.
Date is May 29th.
Thursday the 29th. I know. I'm on it.
All right.
Start me off.
Sit up straight and smile, folks. On your, it's on you, and you can start when you want. Thanks for watching the pre-show, 17 viewers. Stay tuned for the post-show afterwards, where we'll talk about other things. Okay.
All right, stop talking so I can start the show.
You're on now. Ready and go.
Hello, Hockey World. It is Thursday, May 29th, 2014. I'm Julie Robenheimer.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Josh Rimmer.
And I am Eklund. And thanks for joining us, Josh. How's it going?
Oh, I was just reading a text from a certain hockey player.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Dealing with something. Anyway, sorry about
that. My news right now, I have breaking news, is that Carey Price did indeed skate, and continued to skate after the practice today, which I guess a lot of people reported. But what I am saying is that I have heard a small possibility that he is the backup this evening. And if that's the case, then I wonder if there's a small possibility that he's more than the backup. Not maybe tonight, but in Game 7. And I think that I would dress him as the backup. I mean, if they obviously have no confidence at all in Peter Budaj. So what are your thoughts, Josh, on that? Would you dress Carey Price as a backup?
Well, you asked me the question a couple days ago whether or not Carey Price should come back. I believe that was you that asked me that, and
I asked you nothing like that, Josh.
Okay, I don't know. I think they should just let him heal first. I don't think he's 100% yet. Still, obviously, if he was 100%, he'd be playing. But I don't know if I would take the risk. I mean, sitting on the bench, he's probably not going to play unless Tokarski totally, poops the bed.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going there.
I was going to say the S word, but
I knew you were going there too. It's really weird.
I'm not going to curse today. I'm in a good mood.
Don't worry. You're not going to play any shinny? Come on, Julie's taught us all about shinny before.
Very good at shinny.
Very good at shinny. All right, we're going to start the game here. By the way, in the background, we have Tokarski in goal. So this is actually it's a horrible camera view. Sorry, I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. But anyway, we're going to advance it. Probably we'll see it better in my camera. All said and done. Probably over here, you probably see it better up there. But yeah, so that's that, and we'll let you know what happens in the game between the Canadiens and the Rangers. But let's first, Julie, you and I had a brief discussion on Twitter last night about, as you and I usually have on Twitter, very brief discussions. And where I said, where you retweeted one of my tweets I've counted that you've actually retweeted 3 of my tweets. I counted last night just because I was curious. 3 of my tweets, and this is the 3rd retweet of your. I know. I know. That's interesting, right? Anyway, I just wrote okay, exhale, because that after that overtime, that was the best hockey I've seen in a couple years.
In my retweet of that, I said that I really was holding my breath. Like, it was just like, okay, what's gonna happen next? Oh my gosh, like, and you're just watching it, and you're like, oh, there was so much action, and it was so fast, and everybody obviously made a big deal about the fact that they went nearly 8 minutes without a whistle.
Yeah.
In that overtime session. I think the whole overtime period lasted 26 minutes. It's a 20-minute period.
I know that.
And in real time, it was 26 minutes, which is awesome. Crazy, because usually a period in hockey, then, to be fair, there's normally TV timeouts. There's at least 3 TV timeouts in a period. But normally it's at least 40 to 45 minutes. So the fact that they were able to do it in 26 is just mind-boggling. But yeah, it was a really intense game and incredibly fun to watch. And you just literally, when you were waiting for the buzzer, because then you could exhale, because it was on the edge of your seat. Anything could happen at any moment, which is the way that it is in overtime for sure, but exponentially so in last night's game.
It's funny. I couldn't help but think I haven't been to an overtime game yet this year, because the games I covered early in the playoffs, none of the Flyers-Rangers games went to overtime. But at home, I have like a ritual that I do between overtimes. Like when you have that late night between overtimes, you're by yourself, what to do type moments. And at games, there's nothing worse than being at a game in the stands in between a first and second overtime. I mean, it is just like you need that time maybe to recover.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
There was one time in the Hockey East Championships in which UMass went into triple overtime. And I think it was actually the championship game. And yeah, it totally was. It was against Maine, triple overtime. We lost that, and that's why Jimmy Howard sucks. Dustin Penner too. He can be lumped into that because he was on that team. But
I knew there was a reason, Jimmy Howard.
I mean, yeah. That's why Jimmy Howard sucks. Anyway, the entire intermission between the first overtime was one thing. Between the second overtime and going into the third overtime, I literally wanted to puke. I was like rocking like a baby. I had like so much anxious energy. I was just like, oh please, let this happen. It would have been the first time that UMass was in the national tournament, because they would have gotten the automatic bid for being conference champions. And it just would have been so amazing. And then and the part that why Jimmy Howard sucks is that UMass actually scored in the third period to take the lead, but it was disallowed because of the stupid toe in the crease rule.
Yeah, good old toe in the crease rules.
My favorite overtime story was the Columbus Blue Jackets. Yes, I finally talking about them again. The overtime win in Columbus was amazing. I think I think it was like 5 minutes of overtime.
Oh, the one you went to this year.
Yes.
That was amazing.
That was a great overtime. That was one of those there was never a doubt in my mind that Columbus was going to win that game. It was just was one of the normally
And the best part about that game was, I don't know if I told you guys the story or not, but I was sitting next to a former Ohio State lineman that weighed over 300 pounds, probably 350 pounds, and let's just say he had a couple beers, and he was really excited when they scored in overtime, so excited he pushed me, and I literally almost fell down the stairs, and I, again, apologize to the woman sitting in front of me for grabbing onto you, because otherwise it would have been a goner. It was
there's got to be an Instagram photo of you guys embracing somewhere, Josh. Come on now.
Well, since we're talking about pleasant overtime memories, if I'm going to talk about the Leafs, I'd have to go back to the previous century. It would be 93 and Nicky Borashevsky's goal to beat Detroit, and then Doug Gilmour's goal against St. Louis in double overtime. But not many great overtime moments in the 21st century, unfortunately.
Yeah, the one that I remember that worked out against you. But yep.
Yeah, don't. I still have a contract.
I won't go there. But so since I'll complete the hat trick here, or the magical trick here of saying my favorite overtime, and in honor of the fact that I am celebrating my 15th wedding anniversary tonight, which is I was married, which obviously means I was married 15 years ago. For those of you not familiar with how that works, the crazy thing about that is that I was married in the same building the day after Julie attended a prom at that building.
True story.
Yep. You were a 4th grader attending a prom, though. That was just kind of...
Whoa.
Not exactly. But it was funny because you had mentioned it yesterday, and I had totally forgotten about it.
Yeah.
And but I remember, the day that you told me this, and the day we discovered this.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I went to a prom there, and you're like, oh, I got married there, and I was like, oh, cool, blah blah blah, and then like just through conversation we realized that they had happened in consecutive days. Really weird.
And I have
is
a photo.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or something?
Yeah, and I didn't know Julie. I didn't know Julie then at all.
No.
But the crazy thing about this whole thing was I actually my sister-in-law gave us a photograph of the night sky on the night we were married. It's like one of those it's like a thing on the night we're married. So I guess I could make a copy of it for you for the night sky on the night we were
on the day after the prom.
It's got to be pretty close. But my favorite overtime of all, and when I got married, actually, it's funny enough, I actually, in our wedding vows, I had to learn to ski because my wife's an expert skier. And I suck at skiing horribly. And she had to learn, she promised in her wedding vows to watch hockey, which was like a big, obviously, a thing. So, which was going to be amended years later to watch playoff hockey, but at the time it was watch hockey. And so she had never watched an NHL playoff game ever in her life, and we were living in sin, before we were married, and we were hanging out, and I said, what, we're going to watch this game tonight. This is the playoff game I want you to watch. And wouldn't you know that game was the Keith Primo 5-overtime Pittsburgh Penguins Flyers game.
Oh, my God.
Yep. So she sat there for the equivalent of like an entire work day, like 7 hours or whatever it was, and watched from beginning to end that game, and it was just crazy.
And she filed for divorce the next day.
Somehow not, somehow we made it, and somehow she still married me a little bit after that, so crazy as it is. Anyway, so let's get back to last night's game, Mike. This was this was just really, it was really. The speed of which this game was being played reminded me of, of like the best games we would see in the Olympics, or something like, an all-star game, except with intensity of like just these players going back and forth, chances. I mean, that one play that Seabrook made on Lewis, I think it was, where Lewis looked like he was had 2 steps on him, and Seabrook somehow gets his stick around, knocks the puck out without touching him at all. I mean, that just throughout the overtime was spectacular. I mean, all I could say is at the end of the game, Chicago wins and kind of we all win because we get to see these teams play again.
Yeah, I mean,
I tweeted that.
You did? There you go.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, from yesterday's webcast, Julie predicted overtime.
That's true.
I predicted Chicago winning. So it's your anniversary.
Pat on the bat there, Mike.
And I wore a Wookiees mask. But yeah,
and you wore a Wookiees
check
mask.
those things out. Yes.
I mean, the Blackhawks had their backs against the wall, and they played like they did, and they played with the the requisite level of desperation that they needed to.
Yeah.
Now they jumped out to the early lead. LA really had to open up the game to get back into it. I didn't think Corey Crawford was particularly strong early in the game, but he sort of fought through that and played pretty well later in the game and in overtime. One thing that Joel Quenneville did, and this may come back to bite them, and Eddie Olczyk from NBC was talking about this, is the fact that he had to shorten his bench. He had to play basically 3 lines for most of the third period in overtime. A guy like Chris Versteeg made a really bad giveaway in the first period, and he benched him for most of the rest of the game. He spotted in guys like Jesus, and he got the eventual game winner, but that might bite them going back to Game 6, with guys like Taves and Kane playing as much as they did. But they had to. They were in desperate straits, and they had to do that to get to Game 6. And now they have. And now a little bit of the pressure is back on LA because if they don't win Game 6, it's back at the United Center for a Game 7.
Oh, I think all the pressure. Well, I mean, I love that. Is the pressure back on? They interviewed somebody about this yesterday, and they said, is do you think the pressure's back on you guys now? And he's the guy looked at him and said, both these teams are in the conference finals. we both want to win. There's no pressure at this point. It's like we both want to win Stanley Cups. So like to say the pressure shifts, you know what I mean? I kind of like that about that answer, because that's such a common question. And you're right, Mike, and I do agree. I'm not trying to just what you said, but I do agree that the pressure does shift to as far as you don't want to lose at home, obviously. But and for the Kings to go back to Chicago, where the Hawks have only lost, remember, still only one game in the entire playoffs.
Right.
Josh, this is a big game. If, in your opinion, Josh, if Chicago can pull this off in LA, do they win this series?
You got to think that's a strong possibility. Yeah. I mean, I was impressed last night with Brandon Saad. I mean, a lot of people have talked about this kid over the last year and a half, and he was phenomenal last night. I think he had a goal and 2 assists, 3 points. He was the main guy in Chicago last night that basically helped them win that game. And you know what? It seems in these playoffs we see a lot of the youth, performing well. In LA, it's been Toffoli. In Chicago, it's Brandon Saad. So, yeah, I mean, if Chicago goes into LA and wins this game, you got to think the momentum's on their side, winning 2 straight. I would not be surprised at all if Chicago comes back and wins this game, or wins the series. However, I still believe that this series is going 7 games. That's my strong opinion.
You do?
Yes.
So you think this is going 7, but I mean, you get to the 7th game again. The Kings have proven that they can win Game 7s
yes.
like no one's business. Jonathan Quick again last night, enormous, Julie. I know you always like to speak of Jonathan, so but yeah, he was enormous, and he made some great saves. I mean, and I do agree with you on. Speak on John for a second if you could.
Well, he's one of those goalies, that he's very relaxed and poised, and that's what makes him so good. He doesn't get rattled, and that's why, in watching last night's game, when the Hawks went up 2-0, I was like, okay, anyone else feeling deja vu? Because this is exactly what happened the night before.
Right.
And with the exception of that the Kings did not pull their goalie.
Right.
And that was because, they kind of knew that, I don't want to say that those goals weren't on them, but the Kings, really are a puck possession team. They weren't doing their end they weren't doing their part on their end of the ice. And, they were, paying for it. And so I think that it was great that they had faith in what they could do and in their goaltender. And, were able to tie it up. It was interesting. I got a text from somebody during the game, and I think when they went up 2-0, and he sent me a text, and he says, Kings are going to win 4-3. And I was like, all right, we'll see. And then they go into the third, up 4-3. And I was like, oh, holy smokes, if this stays, I will be thoroughly impressed. And, it didn't happen. They tied it up, and they won in overtime. But, they showed tremendous faith in their goaltender because it wasn't like he was playing bad. Looking at the other conference, Lundqvist really wasn't himself, let in some pretty soft goals, uncharacteristically. So sure, pull the goalie, but yeah. But these goals that Chicago scored, I mean, honestly, they were ridiculous goals. So I thought it was great that they were able to show that confidence in John and let him have a chance to come back. And, honestly, he held the fort for a long time. And I will say this, I love overtime, but I hate cheap overtime goals.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
And last night was not cheap. It was worth every single second we waited for in order to get it. And it was 100% worthy of extending their season.
Agreed. Yeah. Got some breaking news, too, on Dale Weiss is not in the lineup tonight.
Yes. But they also said it wasn't a head injury.
That's bizarre.
They said it was a body injury.
Yeah, I guess they just don't.
And they said if I were to presume it was the head, Tarian said you would be presumed wrong. Or you would presume wrong.
Michelle, sans les mots qui vont très bien ensemble. Okay, so yeah, I mean it's definitely a head injury or something.
This is all
like
fun with words. Let's just.
Yes, and it's it's what does Paul Holmgren call it, a below the neck injury or something like that?
Above the neck.
Above the neck injury? Yeah, that was hilarious. So yeah, Dale Weiss, I honestly was going to talk about him yesterday if we had time, because I've been just really impressed. This guy is not just a fourth line player in my mind. He is going to be a really big time NHL player.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's definitely a character guy that helps your team out. I think he's from the Toronto area, actually.
Yeah, he is.
And he was Florida Panthers property, I believe, before Montreal.
I think so.
But yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised that Florida let him go. I mean, if you're a team rebuilding, you'd think that that's the kind of guy that you'd want to hold on to, wouldn't you?
Yeah, who he reminds me of is like a Mike Knuble.
He's got. So you think he's like 20, 30 goal scorer? You think eventually?
Yeah, I honestly do, and I mean, I've seen he doesn't play a whole lot again, in Montreal because they don't play their best players, but he when he does play, I mean, he makes some nice passes, he makes some nice plays. Mike, your thoughts on him?
I mean, he's had a good playoffs. He's played very well in a limited role. I'm not sold that he is, somebody who's going to be a top 9 forward. I think he's a good workman-like player who's a good depth player, and if he's kept in Montreal, I think he'll continue to do that. But I don't think he's going to explode to be some sort of star player. I mean, he's 25 years old. He's been around the league for a while. He was with the Rangers for a little while. Played pretty well in a spot role with the Canucks. I believe he was traded in the deal for Rafael Diaz, and because of the John Moore suspension, Rafael Diaz is going to step in tonight on the Rangers defense, and I think how they cope with Moore's absence is going to be pretty key to whether the Rangers can win tonight or have to go back to Montreal for Game 7.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. He another thing about that reminds me about Knuble is I believe if I'm not mistaken, and I know Bill Meltzer knows this because he's told me this before too, is that Mike Knuble didn't have like a 30-goal season until he was maybe 28 or something like that. Like he basically came on later in his career as well. Just it's a matter of timing and where you're playing. But Weiss has scored some big goals for them considering the time he's played, and he's also just a really solid two-way player.
Yeah, I think the value of quality third and fourth liners has shown in this playoff. I mean, especially with the 4 teams that are remaining. I mean, we know that Briere has done great for the Canadiens in a couple rounds in spite of the limited ice time that he's had, and also Weiss. Now, the one thing that Montreal is going to benefit from is that Prust comes back, and he'll probably step into the fourth line role that's vacated by Weiss. So, not to say that they're not going to miss him, but you're still going to get that physicality that Weiss provided, and Prust can also score as well. So, I think they won't miss him too much, but they may miss him a little bit.
Not the same, but yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they will miss him. Tonight's going to be I think it's going to be a war. I mean, this series has been a war. But one more thought on LA and Chicago too as well, because and maybe Julie, you can speak about this one, because when I watch these teams play, what's really interesting to me about LA, and Josh, I'd like you're putting on this too, because I think we talked about this at one point. LA is able to very much chameleon themselves to whatever team they're playing against, and LA does not. LA looks like the Hawks when you're playing the Hawks, but they can look like somebody else when they're playing someone else. Jules.
It's very true, and I think it's one of those pick your poison kind of things. Do you want to be massacred by speed or skill or strength or physicality, or pick your poison? What do you want? And you see that in successful teams, is that they're able to play in a variety of ways and be successful in a variety of ways, and that's what you see with the Kings. I mean, I feel like we've seen different versions of this team in every round in the playoffs thus far, and we saw it in their various phases of success in the regular season as well. And it's just a matter of the combination of what they can put together in regards to matching up against another team, and then being able to find chemistry within that specific area at that time. You know, it's one thing to say, okay, well, you know, we're going to play this team that's really speedy, so we're going to rely on you guys, and now it's up to them to really, you know, be those speed demons that they're capable of being, or in the opposite is neutralizing that speed, you know, that the other team is giving out there. So it's really been one of those preparation meets opportunity creates luck situations in which
show title.
for these various opportunities, but they have to be able to execute them at that time in order to be successful. So it's very interesting to see the and you know, people are like, oh, the growth. I'm like, yeah, it's not growth, and it's not even development. It's just the you know, various aspects and the various layers. You know, they're like an onion. You peel parts away, and you know, whoa, I didn't know they were that fast. Well, you haven't been watching them all year. But that's what we're seeing in these cup finals.
I agree.
Or, you know, well, I mean, we've talked about this being the cup final, but that was a Freudian slip there.
Josh, your thoughts?
Yeah, guys, one thing I find interesting. Oh man, I didn't mean to say that word. Yeah. Anyway, what? I think 5 or maybe 4 or 5 or 5 or 6 goals that the Blackhawks have scored on Jonathan Quick have been backhanders. I don't know if you guys have realized that at all, but usually that's I find that quite intriguing. I don't know if you really.
I'm with you. It is fascinating and somewhat telling. Mike, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, to your point about, I mean, the Kings are a balanced team. I think they can, they can play any type of game out there. If you want to play a speed game, you got a guy like Gaborik who will stand out. If you want to play a wide open offensive game, you have one of the best playmakers in the league in Kopitar. Doughty can play any type of game. I think it's, their adaptability shows, whereas a team like Boston, I think, got bested by Montreal because they don't have that fifth gear in terms of speed that a team like LA can play with. And for a team like Boston during the summer, they may have to add players who can give them that speed. LA has got young guys coming up. I mean, a guy like Pearson is playing very well. Toffoli is coming into his own. They have depth coming up from their minor leagues. Ron Hextall, when he was there as an assistant GM, and Dean Lombardi have really built an organization that is just funneling talent up to the Kings. And they're going to have some decisions in the offseason about how to fit in those players and maybe move some other guys out because they have a lot of young players coming in.
Big time. And to that point, it doesn't seem like Anze Kopitar and Gaborik should have been playing together their entire careers. Like they just feel like they just are such a natural fit. And it's funny, they both have sort of had interesting careers because they've gone back and forth. In terms of there have been times when they've sort of vanished from their, but they've all been great. They've been great players, but at times not so great. But together, man, they are a combination together to be reckoned with.
Eklund, speaking of interesting, I'm going to throw that out there again. Okay. Another stat these playoffs, Marian Gaborik has 11 goals in 41 games in the regular season this past season. He's got 11 goals and 19 in the playoffs.
It's Kopitar. It's a combination. Those two they play so well off of each other. It's great to watch. It's really exciting. By the way, those who are watching behind us, there's the final there. The Rangers have beaten the.
I was going to ask what the score was.
3-0.
Have the Canadiens ever won on this game, Eklund?
Yeah, they did. Okay. They won the first game that Tokarski was playing for them. The game I did by myself with I just simulated it, and you guys weren't around. But 4,000 people watched this, most watched podcast ever, which makes me wonder why I don't just do that. But anyway, so no, but yeah, this is I love to watch these guys play together. I could see a game like this tonight. I could see the Rangers winning a game like this, 3-0. I can see that kind of game tonight. That feels.
Yeah, let's talk about tonight's game.
Yeah, let's get into that. What are your thoughts, Jules? Go for it. You're going to lead off. You brought us there. Take it.
Well, I think that the Rangers are going to win. I think that they're going to just put their foot down. I think that they were embarrassed at how things went down in Game 5. And I think that they're going to want to finish this on home ice. A, it'd be fun to do it on home ice. And B, I don't think they have any desire whatsoever to go back to Montreal for Game 7, especially when you consider that they have played 2 series that have gone the distance. Doing a third is just like...
Yeah. I so want to see it, though. I want to see a Game 7 in Montreal so much.
I don't.
I think it'd be great.
Although I will say, I had this debate with somebody about last night's game because they're like, oh, LA, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, look, I'm putting my positive vibes behind Chicago only because the thought of going 5 days, potentially, without a game is just not in my wheelhouse right now. So I want a game on Friday, simply because then at least you have the weekend. And then Monday or Tuesday is media day, so it's not really that bad. There's some action. But to go, I mean, honestly, if they were to have won last night and the Rangers win tonight, 5 days without a hockey game?
Yeah, that breaks a lot of momentum.
Exactly. Talk about killing momentum.
It breaks momentum for both teams, too. Mike, your thoughts?
Well, I agree with Julie that I think the Rangers are going to win. I think, obviously, that Lundqvist is going to probably bounce back from, probably his worst game of the playoffs. He's a pretty proud and a pretty great goaltender, and I think he sees the legacy building here. If he gets to a Stanley Cup final and actually wins one for the Rangers, I think he earns the moniker King Henrik. One of the things as I said,
if that happens, wouldn't he be in the Triple Crown club? I know he's got an Olympic gold. I'm pretty sure he's got a world. Didn't he play last year in the World Championships?
He may have won a World Championship gold. Or World Championship. So I'm not sure.
I'm gonna look it up.
Okay.
You finish what you were gonna say.
Okay. The key, as I mentioned before, is Diaz coming in for more. Moore has been playing 15, 16 minutes a night. An effective third pairing with Klein. I think the weight is going to be on the top 3 of the Rangers, McDonough, Girardi, and Mark Stahl, and a little bit to Strawman to pick up some of the minutes, because I don't think Diaz may play some second power play time, but he's playing the opposite position that he normally does. I think he's playing right defense instead of left, so that's going to be an effect on the Rangers. What I think they're also going to do is, and I know that they really have not, and maybe they've shied away from going to the front of the net on Tokarski after the Kreider incident with Carey Price. But honestly, Tokarski really has not been hindered in front of the net. They haven't had players in front of the net screening him, bothering him. I think that they have to do that tonight. I think they have to get physical with Montreal. Montreal has traditionally been a smaller, less physical team, and I think the Rangers can play that game, but they can't fall into the tricky situation of taking stupid penalties, because the Montreal power play can get them. I think in the end the Rangers are going to win. I can't see Lundqvist giving up any more than maybe 1 goal.
Depends on how you get to him early, right? I mean, let's talk some rumors a little bit too, because I think we have. Jules, do you have the answer for this question yet?
He did not win. He's won a gold and a silver at the Olympics.
Okay.
He's won 2 silvers at the World Championships.
Okay.
Gotcha.
He's won a gold medal at the Inline Hockey World Championship.
I have a silver medal from the Inline Hockey World Championships myself.
Yeah, and he's won 2 championships with Frölunda in the Swedish league.
Frölunda.
Which kind of blows my mind. I feel like it was earlier than 2005 in which he started playing in the NHL.
No, he's not that old. I mean, he's
I feel like he's been around a lot longer.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like he's been around for a long, long time. Let's talk a little bit rumor, Josh. Yesterday I got a couple calls, and today I got a couple calls. Starting to pick up a little bit. Evander Kane came up yesterday, and he's been a guy who, I guess his most famous for standing on a balcony in Las Vegas holding out fistfuls of cash, and his whole never really synced into Winnipeg as far as the city goes. And but yeah, it's such a talented player. I mean, many compare him to like a Mike Modano type player. Like he's just got crazy skills. I heard Boston, Chicago, and Buffalo yesterday. and I've heard Buffalo a couple times with him over the years, but Boston and Chicago, and it is rare to hear a team that's still playing in Chicago, but I did hear that too. So what are your thoughts on Evander?
Well, I've mentioned before, and I mentioned a few months back, actually leading up to the deadline this past season, that the Philadelphia Flyers have always been interested in Evander Kane. They've made calls to the Jets before. I honestly believe if Evander Kane is moved, that he ends up in Philly. And going back the other way, could be the Schenn brothers, being both from Saskatoon, not far from Winnipeg. I've heard that many times, that apparently the Jets were interested in one or both. So I could see if Evander Kane is moved, that he ends up in Philadelphia. Obviously, that should be another bell, by the way, obviously, because, yes. Obviously, things weren't working out again in Winnipeg this past season. Paul Maurice benching him during a crucial time for the Jets because he didn't show up to practice on time or a meeting or whatever, the Tyler Seguin syndrome, I guess you could say. Yeah, I mean, I see Evander Kane's worn out his welcome in Winnipeg. I mean, you'd think that this is the kind of guy that the Jets should hold on to since he's a young guy, and the Jets are a pretty young team. Yeah. But I just don't see him staying there. I've heard before that he does want out of there as well. I'm not surprised Boston, Chicago would be interested in him, but I honestly believe he goes to Philly.
The Schenn brothers, it should be like an off Broadway show, it should be, it reminds me of, they should be like living in Dog River, for those of you in Canada. They're like, and they're from Saskatoon, but you got to at some point find the DVDs for the show called Corner Gas out of Canada. It's one of my favorite shows of all time, and I know it's not really, I don't think it's ever been on in America. But it's like the kind of like almost like the Seinfeld of Canada in a way. Josh, is that how you describe it? It's a really good show, Corner Gas.
I've never watched it.
No, kidding me.
No, I've seen the previews. I've turned on the TV and it's been on, and I'm like.
Brent Butt, who's one of the who's like the star of the show, is a famous Canadian guy. He follows me on Twitter, so
look at you.
Yeah, lucky me. But no, this is a really funny show. You gotta watch it, man. That and Tupi and Binu, come on.
I watch way too much TV as it is. I mean, between hockey and all the Doras and the Tupi and Binu and Care Bears and all that other garbage that I have to put on my TV all the time. And then I gotta watch
television hour. Tell us more
I gotta watch Jack Bauer too, right? And then there's America's Got Talent, which just started again, which I addicted to because of Howard Stern. I mean, go down the list. There's too much TV to watch.
I like that show because it's very specific. It's not North America has talent. It's America's Got Talent.
Yes. And Howard Stern's the best.
I'm sure that show goes over. No, he's very.
He's anyway. My idol.
Wow, so we got off track there. But Mike, Evander Kane, with you, your thoughts?
Well, one thing, I think that I think that he will be traded. I don't have an insight as to where, but I have an insight in the fact that Winnipeg is going to be expecting to get not draft picks, not prospects, but
no, they can't get
NHL players that they can hold on to for 5-6 years. That's why I might put some credibility and some stock into a Braden Schenn type of trade because what is he, 22? He's on his entry level, just ending his entry level deal. He's an RFA. They can sign him to either a bridge deal or sign him to a long 5 or 6 year contract. Hold on to him. He can probably be a second or third line center, or if you want to move him to the wing, he's got a lot of flexibility. I don't know if it seems too simplistic to have both of them go in a deal like that. I don't think Luke Schenn is going to be sent out of town on a rail unless the Flyers have another deal to bring a defenseman into the organization via another trade. So, I think that's the type of deal that will be made. I would think there's a possibility the Islanders, that they're looking for a winger to play with John Tavares. Evander Kane might make some sense there. I don't put any credibility into him going to Buffalo unless Buffalo gets him for virtually nothing, and I don't think Winnipeg is trading him for virtually nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Buffalo's got some good young talent, and I mean, a lot of people see them as a team that's on the rise.
Yeah,
so I mean, they've got the kind of players that you could move.
Right, but Buffalo's strength is on defense, and arguably I think Winnipeg's strength is on defense. I mean, unless they move
right.
Byfuglien. I mean, if they've got Bogosian, they've got Trouba, they have a pretty solid defense. So I would think that if a deal for Kane is probably going to be a forward for forward transaction, and not a forward for defense transaction.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard Bogosian could possibly be moved as well. That's another thing. So I mean, they're pretty much anything. Braden Schen's a good topic though. That's your opinion on him, Julie, too, because what is Braden Schenn really? This is what I've been trying to figure out for a while. He's a talented guy. He was kind of brought in here as a Mike Richards replacement. So people were comparing him to Mike Richards to a degree. He's not really that kind of a player, but he has moments where he has a hat trick in the playoffs a couple years ago. He's shown moments where he can be really strong.
Flashes of brilliance.
Flashes of brilliance, but then but he's so young. I mean, what are your thoughts on Braden? Do you think he's worth waiting for this kid?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that was actually going to be my point, is that I feel like everyone's like, oh, and that's the way it is with the draft. Everybody's like, oh, we have such high hopes, and they're so used to players just being like Nathan McKinnon and coming in and just killing it in their first year. And not everybody's like that. Mm-hmm. And honestly, their development shouldn't be rushed. There is a player who shall remain nameless who during college, I think it was his freshman year, and he said, if I stay, if I don't have an opportunity to leave before my junior year, I will be disappointed.
Really?
And I was like flabbergasted by that statement, but that is the pressure that they feel to be successful right away. Yeah. And I think that is incredibly unfair. And that player has rushed, honestly, as soon as, they said, here's the dotted line, he signed on it, even though he wasn't ready. He could have benefited from more time in college. He has not panned out to be the player that everybody thought he was going to be. Right. And I sit there and I'm like, look, had you developed in a more practical manner, maybe things would be different. Right. And I feel that way about a lot of guys, I mean, Kyle Turris is another example. I think that had he spent more than 1 year at Wisconsin,
that's a good point.
And waited, to gain some man strength and developed a little bit more before he took hold of his NHL opportunity, that he'd be a completely different player today. And, I've never known a player to regret, staying in school.
We haven't really seen it. It's a good point. We really haven't. I mean,
or even in juniors, staying in juniors. Nobody says, "Oh, I wish I had left early." Nobody says that.
Eventually, they do.
There are a plethora of players who say, "I wish I had waited another year." Yeah. And that is not only like a physical thing, but it's a mental thing. It's a competition thing. There are so many other things. It's like holding your son back. Those September, October's birthdays, you can be in either class. I always say you hold your son back, especially your son, not so much your girls, but especially your boys, because you want them to be bigger, stronger, faster. You want them to have that advantage.
It's become like an epidemic in our area around here. I mean, everybody's getting held back. It's bizarre though. They're almost holding back. They're holding back even lower, but that's you're right that is definitely an advantage to player to kids.
That's how and so to say with Braden, well, he should be amazing right now. Well, no, he shouldn't. Is he contributing in a positive way? Yes. Is his development improving? Yes. What is the need to fast track that and potentially disrupt that forward progress by pushing him too hard?
Well, yeah, and I think that I have two different
selfish
views.
Is what that is.
I have two different views on this, like Luke Schenn and Braden Schenn. Luke Schenn, I believe in giving time. I do think defensemen like Luke Schenn, big corn-fed Western Canadian defensemen, take a long time to get
cornbread
to develop.
He was played as an 18-year-old with the Leafs. A lot of people
that screwed him up big time too.
that stunted his growth. I mean, he was fifth pick overall. They had a bad team. They needed to sell the team. Here's going to have this young guy who's going to be the cornerstone of our franchise. And then within 3 years, they're saying, he can't play. And then they trade him for James Van Riemsdyk.
I mean, I'm still willing to give him some time to develop.
I think he's. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
I think he's a top. I think Luke Schenn's a top 4 defenseman. That's what I think he is, and that's probably what he was always going to be.
And he was rushed too fast in Toronto. I think that's what screwed up everything. He should have gone back and played junior. There was too much pressure on him as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I like both Schenns as well. But. If Philly wants to make a move or...
Well, I mean, that trade I would make. I mean, you're getting Evander Kane for that trade. I would make that trade. As much as we sit here and talk about the Schenns, I would make that trade.
Yeah, and you got to think Ron Hextall's going to want to try to make a splash right at the beginning. He's going to want to kind of, tweak the team a bit. So.
Well, I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. It's interesting you say that. Who's actually rooting for? I said, who are you rooting for? In the playoffs, because it's tough if you're a Flyers fan right now. You've got Chicago, who you can't root for because they beat us in the Stanley Cup Finals a few years ago. You've got LA, and that's a whole other can of worms because you got Richards and Carter there. You got the Rangers. That's just forget about it. Mm-hmm. You have Montreal. And that's like another situation altogether. But Montreal's okay, and you got Danny Briere, so a lot of people around here want them to win. But the person I was talking to said they want the Kings to win, and here was their reasoning for it as a Flyers fan, is to give Hextall more collateral with Ed Snyder, like to basically say, okay, they brought in.
I built this team, yeah.
Yeah, they brought in Hexy, and the general managers, right or wrong, the perception is, and I don't really necessarily buy this wholly, but I think there's like anything, there's a little bit of truth to it. Is that Snyder has this big overbearing grip on what the general managers do. I think that's true maybe, and it's not overbearing. He does have a definite opinion on things. The thinking is that even though Hextall is an ex-Flyer and they bring in ex-Flyers, he made his he hoisted the Stanley Cup already in LA, and he's got another team that he helped build that could be doing it again, and the Flyers are desperately in need. I got a foot cramp. Julie, go ahead.
Yeah. Thought something else happened, but anyway.
Gosh, sorry.
Hey, guys, can I ask you a question? Have you heard at all if the NHL Player Safety Department is reviewing the sucker punch to Brad Pitt at the Magnificent premiere last night? Have you guys looked into that at all?
No, I didn't even hear about this.
Oh, yeah. It happened. It was
so lame. Why are we talking about it?
I thought it was funny.
If Brad Pitt were a hockey fan, I'd be all for this discussion. But he's not. So.
Well, if we're going to talk about that, are we going to talk about the lawsuit where Corey Crawford is going to get sued by an LA fan for splashing him with a water bottle that was filled with backwash? I mean, come on.
Wah.
No, I'm all for discussions about things like this, but I didn't even hear about that. That's weird.
Yeah, Google it after we're done.
I will definitely Google it.
Yes.
I'd Google it. No, I'd Google it if there was actual video, but there's not. So it's not worth Googling.
I'd love to see the video too.
Brad Pitt getting slugged?
Yeah, he got sucker punched last night at the premiere of his wife's movie that I probably won't even go see. Magnificent or whatever.
Maleficent.
Yes.
I don't even know the title, so.
She's the Wicked Witch in Snow White.
Oh, you don't want to talk about this.
This is.
I don't want to talk about
this.
Thanks, Josh.
Boy, man, we're off the rails now.
You know what that means? It's time to end the show.
It is time to end the show. Enjoy the games tonight, guys. We'll be back again tomorrow. Please do us a favor and subscribe to our YouTube feed and tell your friends about the podcast because we're really enjoying it. We're getting more and more views every day. More and more of you are telling us you want. Now we're going to do the pre-shows and some of the post-shows afterwards. So you get actually post-shows not so much because we will be stopping the recording. But we'll be doing pre-shows. So at 1 o'clock every day, check us out. Check out what's going on, and we'll try to bring the hockey news to you and try to have fun with it as well. And Josh is breaking all kinds of rumors before the show, so you want to check right at 1 o'clock. And Julie's always talking about her how to go which direction to head with her hair. And Mike's sitting there, curmudgeonly smirking and wondering what's wrong next.
And staring at the Toronto Maple Leaf sticker on the non-playoff.
I know, right? I was thinking the exact same thing today. It's like right there. What is that about?
That's awesome. That is called motivation. That's motivation. You just have to look at that big, giant blue leaf right next to your head.
Well, if the right result happens tonight in New York, I'm going to rip the Habitants emblem tomorrow as the opening of the show.
I'm still going with it. I said it before. The Canadiens are going to win the series. But there you have it. That's all, guys. Have a good night. Remember, without the buzz,
it's just hockey.
Talk to you soon.